Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Veil and the Thread podcast. We are our mother and daughter team. I'm Sarah, the daughter.
And I'm Elizabeth, the mother.
So, last week or last podcast, we were talking about a lot of different things, basically the psychic versus the mediumship. But one of the things that I kind of briefly mentioned at the end, which in itself is an absolutely huge topic, and I kind of just, did a mic drop um towards the end, was who are we actually communicating with when we communicate with spirit? And so for me, there's kind of a couple of different angles to this because there's the who am I communicating with, as in, is it spirit? Is it the energy of a family member that's passed? Is it my higher self? Is it the energy of the universe? That's one thing in itself. And then there's also the other part of it, which is, am I communicating with the energy of something or someone that maybe doesn't have my highest good or my best intentions at heart? So, as our resident experienced medium, Mum, what is your take on what I've just said?
Wow, that is huge, isn't it? Huge. Oh my God, where to start? Okay, if we start very simply, like when you're training, what you're told that you're doing is communicate. Well, the idea is that you learn to communicate with um, spirits, guardian angels, um, inspirers, people on the other side of the veil, who are either your relatives or friends, community that you've known, um, or um, other people's relatives that want to communicate with you. So you're very much focusing on communicating with people who are known to you or people close to you who are now residing in the spirit world. And we
Okay.
assume that they are all of human origin.
Mhm.
So it's only really when you start to develop further, because let's face it, nobody wants to get scared and put off in
Mhm.
lesson one, you
Yeah.
know, by your your question in the last
Oh,
podcast. Who were we communicating with? You know?
yeah. Okay,
So
so then I guess bef before we get on to the darker side of this, let's look at what I initially said, where who are we communicating with, as in, do you what are your beliefs on communicating with the energy of our higher self or the energy of source, or something
yeah,
that has
yeah.
maybe not been a physical person at some point on this plane? Do you think that's a possibility, and is there a way of telling the difference?
I think it is a possibility. I think it's very common because when people pass over to the spirit world, they don't have the skills more often to communicate with you because they're having to learn a whole new way of communicating because, they're not talking with their voice. So they often need the assistance of guides, spiritual guides on the other side, who are like the intermediary. They are the ones that are experienced in communicating between the two veils. And so they will enable your relative or whoever on the other side to be able to communicate with you. So they will pass on information to that guide, who will then pass it on to you.
Do you think that those beings or those energies, is that what a lot of people would refer to as angels?
Well, some people might refer to them as angels, but I see them more as people who are in the spirit world. They have the skills to communicate between the two worlds. There could be people that they were just ordinary people
Mm.
on the physical plane, and they've dedicated their lives to assisting, being a translator, if you like, an interpreter for people on the other side. So,
Mm.
when you pass over, um, particularly if you've been in that caring field or the therapy field, you're kind of naturally drawn towards helping people in one way or another. And one
Mm.
of the great ways, particularly if you have been a spiritualist, is to use those skills to help other people, across the
Okay.
divide.
So then I guess in that scenario, you're still looking at people that have had a physical incarnation, that have had the experience of being a human. Um, do you how do you view the communication when it's maybe with, because one of the things I do, I try to do like automatic writing. I don't write essays or anything like that, but sometimes when I've got a question or something on my mind and I may be overthinking it, I do like to, ask permission to work with my higher self or write down the questions, and then I'll just write without the expectation of knowing what's going to come out of the pen, basically.
Mm.
And so I always believe that that's me communicating with my higher self, whether it is or whether I'm communicating with source or or what. Um, but that's me communicating with my higher self. So for me, I guess that communication is more of an internal thought system. Do you think that that's how we can tell the difference between when we're communicating with spirit and when we're communicating with our own energy or an energy that hasn't been a physical incarnation? Do you think it's that when you're communicating with energy, it's more of an internal thought, and when you're communicating with spirit, it's something different? I don't know. I'm tying myself up in knots because I know that when we spoke about is it clair cognizance
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it's a knowing,
a knowing.
um,
Yeah,
that might come across as the same. So, yeah, what are your
yeah,
thoughts on that? Do you think there is an easy way to tell between speaking with spirit and speaking with energy? I will say higher self just to keep it simple.
yeah. I suppose over time and with experience, you would you would be able to learn the subtle differences with the energy. A lot of medium talk about feeling the energy change.
Hmm.
So over time you do get to know on what level you're communicating. But I will say that I was always told that quite often you are communicating with spirit that's never lived a physical life,
Mm.
and that that can be unsatisfying in some respects because they've never lived a physical life. There isn't the appreciation of what it's really like to live in that physical body.
But hang on a
And
second,
so,
because I'm
go on,
confused now.
go on.
So you're saying you've been taught that whenever you communicate with spirit, you're never communicating with somebody that's lived a life on this plane.
Oh no, you are. Yeah, you're quite
Okay,
often
so
communicating with somebody who's lived on this plane.
okay,
But there are also higher beings that have never lived a physical life.
okay.
Yeah, and my teacher used to say, it's all right for them. They tell you not to worry, you know, um, not to get bogged down by your troubles and your woes and, see the bigger picture. She said, but they've never lived. So it can be frustrating when they talk to you in those terms because,
Yeah.
You know, you
Well,
think,
I guess they're operating from such a higher place. They're operating from
yes,
the place where we all aim to get to in
yeah,
our physical life. But I mean, yeah, we're all in the trenches, eh? We're living we're living the hard life. We're living we're getting the beat downs every day, and we're getting, we're living through the harshness of being a human being. So yeah, if an energy is trying to communicate with you and, being like, well, you need to be above all of that. You need to, yeah,
yeah, yeah. You feel like
it's a little frustrating.
you feel like telling them where to go.
Yeah.
Like, all right, you think it's so easy to rise above. Come down here. Come down here
Yeah.
and have a physical experience. Then you can talk. But I
Yeah.
suppose you need that, don't you? You need those energies that, like you said, they're always there to remind you where you're aiming for. You know,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
only communicated with spirit that's lived lives, then they might be more apt to say to you, oh, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Jaded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
All these jaded energies, whereas we do need that pure energy, that pure love, that pure light, don't we, to
yeah.
to help pull to pull us all up out of the harshness of life.
To remind you, I think, of who you really are
Yeah.
inside that physical body. You're just like me. You're just like the higher energies,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So,
So then basically, yeah, so we've got communication with um our higher self, say, or
yeah, yeah.
um, higher energies, people that have or energies that, as you say, have never lived on the physical plane. Then we also have a communication with those energies that have been on the physical plane, who
Mhm.
friends and family that we've had lives with and have passed. So then, if we're talking about being careful who we're communicating with, who or what is it that we need to look out for?
Well, first of all, when I first started getting messages from the church, I used to get worried, and I'd go to the medium later on and say, wait a minute, I've been told by my father, for example, one of the first messages I got was, this is your father, he's telling you to be home by 10 o'clock at night.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, so afterwards I went to the medium and I said, look, I have three children, because we were just the boys then. I have three children. It's not possible for me to be in at 10 o'clock at night. And the fact is, I work, nights and all sorts of shifts.
Yeah.
And the medium said, was your father very strict when he was here, you growing up? And I
Hmm.
said, yes. And she said, did you have to be in at 10 o'clock at night? I said, oh, yeah. She said, well, all he's doing is proving that it's him,
Okay.
by saying that. And she said, and furthermore, just because he's telling, even if he did want you to be in by 10 o'clock, you don't do what he wants. Just
Yeah.
because he's now in the spirit world, did you obey him? Were you always in at 10 o'clock? And I said, well, no, sometimes I wasn't. I got into trouble. She said, no, well, they don't become saints, and they don't become all knowing just
Mm.
because they've passed the spirit. So don't revere them like there's something wonderful and special, unless they
Yeah.
actually were. And then it's
Yeah.
different. But then you're getting into a whole different arena, because it's one thing talking to your relatives and your guides, but then we have to remember that there are people that haven't crossed over, that live between the worlds for a
Okay,
number
so
of reasons.
between the worlds, as in between our realm and
Yeah,
where
and
spirit
spirit. Yeah,
go. Okay.
yeah. And for a number of reasons, we all have heard what they are. people who often pass over suddenly, tragically, particularly a
Hmm.
young person, who feels they've not had chance to live
Mm.
and they feel they're full of life. So they're not ready to pass to the spirit world. And so they can stay very close to the earth. You'll get people. Go.
Th- Well, no, I guess this will be a question for after, because it was basically about what types of energies get trapped. But let's let me ask this question after you've
Yeah.
explained who else
Okay.
can be found in this space.
Yeah. You get people who perhaps a mother or a father leaving behind very young children, very concerned about the welfare, how they're going to manage financially, emotionally, and they can't leave the earth plane because they're too traumatized to do so. So they stay and want to watch over the families.
Hmm.
You get people quite often from a very strict religious background who have been told, well, without naming any faiths, there are some faiths where you're told you're born a sinner and you die a sinner, you
Yeah.
know, and you try to atone for it as much as possible in between.
Yeah.
And so you do get people who are actually really frightened to pass over into the spirit world because they think they're going to get punished. Is there such a
Yeah.
place as hell? And or it could be somebody who's had a really abusive relationship with someone on the other side, and they're really afraid that they're going to meet up with them, and that abuse is going to
Okay.
continue. So you have to remember where we are in that spiritual community.
Hmm.
So we wouldn't think like that, but there's so many people out there that believe that.
Okay, so then I'm sure you're going to move on to other things as well, but if we're just talking about the examples you've given so far, you can understand, you've explained well how those energies maybe get stuck between our world and the spirit world where, that is their ultimate destination, I guess, for
Mm,
that part
mm-hmm.
of their journey. Um, they have maybe been stuck there because of circumstance, but that doesn't, those people are not inherently evil
No,
people or have
no,
bad intention or
no.
anything like that. So what is obviously they don't want to be stuck there. They need to move on. But for
Hmm.
for us, what is the problem with those energies being stuck there and communicating with us?
Well, there isn't too much of an issue really with people like that. If you know what you're doing, you can actually be of assistance,
Yeah.
and help to guide them towards the many people that are around each and every person who passes on and is stuck between the two realms. There are so many helpers and guides waiting, to try and wake them up. And so we
Hmm.
can assist in that from this side
Yeah.
by encouraging that. But then I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the ones that we do need to be mindful of. So you'll get people who have got serious addiction to alcohol, drugs, sex addiction, you name it,
Hmm.
addiction. They may not want to cross over. Very negative minded people. Um,
Mm.
dare I say it? Um, people who have been violent on this earth plane and feel they want to continue that. They will tend to be drawn. For example, an alcoholic would tend to be drawn to other alcoholics who are still in a physical body.
Okay.
So they will want to be around that person, or a drug addict or what have you. They'll want to be around that person. Um, the it's not uncommon for them to be found in pub environments where they
Okay.
can get the energy of alcohol and people who are enjoying a drink.
Hmm.
But then there are um, energies that are just angry, um, resentful, the kind of people that we would class as mischief makers because they don't want to do any good.
Mm.
They they really don't want to pass over either. So they hang around the earth plane just looking for opportunities, to make a
Yeah,
pain of themselves.
to cause trouble. So
Yeah,
so then I guess this particular group that we're talking about now, then they did live a human experience, and as you're saying, it sounds like, but there's some addiction to what we would say are the denser frequencies. So, the denser frequencies of human life, the things that we become attached
yeah,
to. So,
yeah,
as you say, addiction, whether that's alcohol addiction, addiction, drugs, and so I guess it's that unwillingness to let go of those attachments and that desire to continue being the person that they've been is what stops them from moving on. And if they've been that person in life, that's what they want to continue doing once they've
yeah,
passed. So
yeah,
I guess that's when you're going to have um, maybe mischievous energies
yeah.
around
Mischievous,
people.
frustrated, um, angry energies. Because the other thing is, we know well if what we are told over this decades is true, that in the spirit world you can do all these things. If you want a cigarette, you can have a cigarette. If you want a drink, you can have one. If you want to have
Yeah.
sex, you can have sex. But it ain't the same.
Mm.
There's something always missing. And that's what these spirits are
So,
looking for
so you mean there's something always missing from the
from that
the way that
experience.
humans experience things, those things, as opposed to how you would experience it in spirit.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so then one of the questions that I can see people being interested in, you're talking about these denser energies and the mischief that they cause around people. How, for you, does that differ to poltergeist energy? Because I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, oh, I've seen that, or I have a friend that experienced that. As you said, like the angry, kind of violent energy,
Mm,
where
mm,
things might fly off the shelves and cupboard doors might
yeah.
fly open. I I know what I've been told by you in the past, and it's
Yeah.
probably quite aligned to what I believe. But what would you say is the big difference then between those mischievous energies and what we would refer to as poltergeist energy?
Well, generally, and I mean, this is my opinion. I know a lot of mediums carry the same views. Some differ, but often with poltergeists, there's often a young soul physically here who's going through some kind of psychological, emotional issues. And the
Mm.
idea is that energy is actually their own energy, their own
Okay.
psychic energy that, if you like, has taken on a life of its own.
So the doors flying open and the glasses flying off of the shelves, it's actually energy that's coming from that person, that living person, rather than anything from spirit.
Yes. But think about it. If there's if, say, there's a young person like that throwing the psychic energy around, having a right old tantrum, then there are energies that can be drawn to that
Well, that
who,
was going
who
to
are on
be
the other side.
that was
Oh,
going to
come
be my
on.
next
Yes.
question, that if
Yeah.
all of this chaotic energy is going on, surely that density is going to attract and pull actual spiritual
Yeah.
energy into
Yeah.
what they're doing as well.
Yeah. Oh, so and so's kicking off down there. she's
Yeah.
throwing stuff all around the room, or he is. Come on,
Yeah.
party time.
Let's get in. Let's get in
Yeah,
on that.
let's get in and feed off that energy, you
Okay,
know?
so then that kind of so to summarize a little bit, when we're talking about the more negative energies that we can communicate with, because that was the initial question. So we've got spirit that have passed over that, for due to circumstance, have not been able to fully pass over.
Mm,
That's not too much of a concern for us. It's more so for them, because they're trapped in this
yeah,
space that we want
yeah,
to help them move on to. You then have spirit of people that have passed, who actually are maybe quite enjoying where they are right now,
yeah,
because although they're not getting the full satisfaction that they did in life, they're still continuing with the addiction, the denser energies, the violence, whatever it is.
yeah,
Um, and then if we're talking about the poltergeist energy of being, psychic energy, are there any other energies that we've missed out that we need to be aware of, that maybe don't have such good intentions? Is there, does everything kind of fit into those categories for you, or is there anything missing?
yeah. I think we should focus on the realms and the areas that we've discussed really. I
Yeah.
know I know there are people on YouTube and they talk about even darker
Hmm.
energies, but I don't. In all the years that I've been a medium, I have only heard of a handful
Mm.
where people have had to be rescued from very, very dark, evil energies.
Well, I guess that kind of fits into the next subject really, which is protection. Or the way that I read it recently, which I quite like, was self-occupation. Now, this is one
Ooh,
of those areas where I don't know, I wouldn't say that we disagree on this particularly, but I
yeah,
think we come from very different, I think we come from very different perspectives, because with your, I, I say this in the most respectful way, old school medium training, protection was always, a very, very important kind of 101 subject. This is what you
yeah,
need to know before you can get into anything else. Um, whilst I don't disagree with that, I do think protection is very important. I come from a perspective where I believe that a lot of the negative sensations or negative energies is linked in with our intention. Um, Now I know that there'll probably be a lot of people that want to shout at me about that, because it's that whole thing, isn't it? Of, I didn't ask for this, or this was not my intention. But I know there are a lot of mediums out there, maybe from what I would say is more the new school mediumship of, you can only really be harmed by the things that you allow yourself to be harmed by, or you can only be harmed by the things that you allow yourself to believe is a reality.
mm,
So by
yeah.
yeah, I'm just going to lay that down in front of you and
Yeah, we'll
see
probably
what you say about
yeah,
that.
we probably disagree about this till the end of time, or have some areas of disagreement. But yeah, I'm old school about it. I do believe in if you intend to communicate with spirit, then I do believe in protecting yourself. And to me, it's well, I know you talk about if it's your intention only to communicate with the higher energies, then surely that should be enough protection.
Mhm.
But I think it's very hard living in this physical world at the moment. I think it was a lot easier 50 years ago when we mostly lived in ignorance about what was really going on in the world. It's very hard to be able um, to sit and totally cut yourself off from any negative thoughts or feelings, and to be able to take yourself into that higher place where
Mm.
and higher pure intention, where you can stay on that lovely frequency where the dense energies in the lower frequencies can't go. They just
Yeah.
can't reach those frequencies. But I think realistically, it's very difficult for a human being to get themselves into a state of positive intention and remain there throughout the whole of the session.
But then I guess this is where I think this is where we we continue to butt heads and not move forward on this, because my argument is, right, I will take I'm going to take a story, and it's extremely simplified, so apologies for people out there that know a lot more about this subject than I do. But the when I was in the forest in Peru, they
Hmm.
I was with the Shipibo people, and the maestro was telling us about what a difficult time he had had the last couple of years, because as a maestro he works with medicine for good, but there's also the witchcraft side of of plant medicine. And so he was talking about how he'd been battling off these psychic and spiritual attacks from people that were not happy with the work that he was doing. They were working under dark energy, he was working under light energy. And so he got to the point where he was extremely ill, kind of deathbed illness, because he had all of these psychic attacks. Now, I was talking to somebody else about it, and we were kind of along the same lines, where the line you live by the sword, die by the sword is the sentence that comes to mind for me in this. As in, if you are going to be a maestro and you live in that world, part of your belief system is that there's this darker energy alongside you that's fighting with you, that's trying to stop you from doing what you're doing. And so by having belief in that, you expect it, or you are
Mm,
aware that it could
mm,
happen. You're letting it
mm,
into your energetic field.
mm-hmm,
Whereas if I'm sitting in my home and I'm like, oh yeah, I completely have respect for this way of thinking, but that's not my belief. Is it not enough that I have a strong belief that I cannot be affected by those energies to not be affected by those energies, if you know what I mean?
yeah, I do. I know exactly what you mean, but I would still
But
not agree.
but you don't agree. But
Yeah.
but then
Now,
isn't this the same as, and sorry, I talked for a while, so I'll let you have your
I
piece.
know.
But is this not essentially the same as, when we talk about the law of attraction and manifestation, and people say, oh, whatever you want, you can have it. You just have to have the pure belief that you
Yeah.
have it already, or you're that person already. Is it not the same? Is it not the fact that if your belief is strong enough, that is protection in itself?
I know what you're saying, but I liken it to, all right, somebody who is devoutly, whatever, I'll say Christian, a devout Christian
Yeah.
who believes that, they can't see any bad in anybody and everything's pure light and love.
Mhm.
And in a sense, I see that as almost a level of ego at work,
Okay.
right? Because if you believe, let me give you an example. I read a story years ago about a vicar And she was lovely. She was like the Vicar of Dibley
Mm.
before her time, the
Yeah.
story Vicar of Dibley on TV. And she was wonderful. Everybody loved her. And she had given her life totally to God. And then, sadly, her daughter died. Um, I think maybe cancer or something. And her faith in God died overnight with the
Mm.
death of her daughter. And that was it. She left the faith and never went back.
Mm.
And so I kind of think that even when we think we are operating from the best intention, then even that, in a sense, can put you at risk. Thinking, I am operating at my best intention. I only think positive. I only want to draw positivity to myself
Mm.
in a way that if I did that, I would feel vulnerable.
But then, sorry. So, what's your point with the vicar that she had such strong faith, yet it just went,
When,
with a
yes,
catastrophe?
so
Yeah.
the argument is, how strong was her faith then? Because to everybody, oh, that vicar had 100% faith in God. And
Yeah.
then a tragedy changed her 100% faith overnight into being angry with God and turning
Yeah.
her back on God. So I think sometimes, I think I've said to you before that for me, a lot of the protection is about protecting yourself from yourself,
Mm.
because we've seen it. Mediums that start off in the learning phase, they get better and better. They get to the point where they go on a rostrum. They're giving messages regularly. They're running circles, and you can sometimes see that the ego is beginning to become the dominant force
Mm.
with them, and they've forgotten that they're in partnership with spirit and they're nothing without spirit. In fact,
Yeah.
for most mediums, they're nothing without the congregation to give them that
Yeah.
energy and that love. Do you
But
know what I
then,
mean?
yeah, but then that is for me, that is purely an ego thing. Like you said, there might be a very good medium, and then that starts to go to the head, and they
Mm.
start, as you say, they start to believe it's them rather than spirit working with them. And yeah, I can completely see that. I can completely understand that. But yeah, where protection is concerned, yeah, I don't know. I don't see it as an ego thing. I see it as a pure intention or belief thing. My my intention is that my energy field is not going to be invaded or violated by somebody that has negative thoughts towards me. Like why can that not be enough? You know?
Because I think as human beings, we always have that vulnerability. There's that
Mm,
inner vulnerability that, I mean, we've seen, haven't we, with some of the new age people that we come across. They're all sweet and light and wonderful, and but you scratch the surface, and something quite unpleasant comes to the fore. And
yeah.
under the right circumstances, even they're shocked by how it's affected them, because they didn't think they were capable of such anger and animosity and what have you. And
Yeah.
so I think as humans, we do have a vulnerability. I don't, for me anyway, I can never say that my thoughts are so, are of such a positive intention that I will never attract anything negative to me.
You see, so I think that's looking at it from a different perspective then. So you're looking at it from what you're attracting, and I'm looking at it from what am I defending? because like you just said, in your mind, my thoughts are not so pure and, 100% lie all the time that I can't, you know, I I don't have the ability to 100% filter out attracting negativity towards me. Whereas in my mind, the scenario is I'm Sarah sat on my little iceberg, minding my own business, not having negative or positive thoughts about anything,
Yeah.
but somebody might be trying to direct negative thoughts to me or
Mm,
harm,
mm.
but because my intention is to not be affected by that, it's kind of like I'm wearing a shield around me that negativity is bouncing off. So it's interesting to me that you've worded it in that way because it's like we're coming from two different perspectives. You're looking at it from a perspective of can my thoughts be pure enough all the time to not attract this? Whereas I'm like, is my intention strong enough that I can deflect whatever comes towards me?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, we are coming from two different points.
Too bad.
But
I mean, yeah, I still don't think
no,
we're going to be
no,
on the
because
same page.
I think even I'm coming from avoiding an attack, I suppose. You're saying that you feel you can defend yourself from.
No, I'm coming from avoiding an attack. You're coming from not attracting an attack to you,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
Either either way, either way, I think there's a flaw in our human nature that
Yeah.
can still leave room for some, not
Oh,
doubt, but a
yeah.
little
A bit of
crack
vulnerability, yeah.
in the, yeah,
S- So then, okay, I think we can agree that we're never going to fully agree on the protection thing, but there are some other bits that I want to talk about today before we end. So, in can you give us, because one of my bugbears with the whole protection thing is how people can make it a science sometimes, people can
yeah,
make it so complicated, and that's been one of my other issues about it in the past. And I think if you make something too complicated, people are less likely to do it. So although we will politely agree to disagree on everything to do with protection, what would
yes.
your advice be to the listeners for protecting themselves, in a really simple, quick way, something that they're going to be able to do? And would you recommend doing this as a daily thing or only when they want to communicate with spirit?
Do you know, you've just made me think when you said, would you advise to do this on a daily basis? In the current climate that we're living in, even forgetting whether you want to protect or not from spirit, I would say it's not a bad idea to ask for protection
Mhm.
for yourself on a daily basis because there's so much negativity around. And
Yeah,
it's
there's
not,
there's so many dense energies and
yeah,
dark energies flying
yeah.
about.
And even if you're a positive person, you're surrounded by people who are struggling and fearful, you know, they don't know where things are going. But, up to probably the 60s and 70s, my generation, certainly, every day you prayed.
Mm,
And going to school, we all prayed, didn't we? We might have disliked
yeah.
it. But even today, the prayer is so, so powerful, you know?
Mm. I find as well, because I think we both watch a lot of YouTube, and we're pretty up to date with what's out there. I found, have you found the same, that over the past few months, maybe even year or two, prayer seems to be making a comeback? And but
Yes.
it's prayer in a modern with a modern twist. It's
Yes.
not the old
Yeah.
praying to a stuffy god that you don't necessarily believe in.
Yeah.
It's prayer to the whatever the higher source is that resonates with you, But I
Yeah,
find that this notion of daily prayer is really making a comeback.
yeah, I totally agree. And as we've said before, you have to believe in God to pray? I would
Mm,
argue that you don't. You can pray to the higher energies, the your guardian angel,
nature,
who nature,
yeah,
nature. If you think Wiccans are very religious people. So yeah, you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to believe in God. So prayer,
yep,
and I think rituals, something else that's coming back
mm,
because it's all about what you were talking about, your intention. You light a
yeah,
candle, you may sit and meditate for a few minutes or
hmm,
however long you can. These are all ways of protecting yourself because you're sending out positives into the
yeah.
universe.
And I'll share one of the techniques that I read as well. As I said a few minutes ago, I'd read, this notion of if protection doesn't resonate with you, the idea of self-occupation. And I know you're not going to believe me when I say that protection does resonate with me. It's not that it doesn't resonate with me, but when I
Okay.
heard self-occupation, I thought, oh, that's a really kind of empowering way to look at it. It's kind of taking your power back in a way. You're not
Okay.
protecting yourself
Yeah.
from something. You're actually filling yourself with your own energy so that nothing else can, penetrate that life force. And so the visualization was basically a very short, people who visualize or meditate or work with spirit will probably already be used to this notion of visualizing a bright white light in the center of the
Mhm.
chest.
Mm.
And so the visualization or the meditation was to see this light and have it grow until it fills the complete body, and then it starts to expand out. This will be very familiar to, as I say, people working with
Mm.
spirit. This light emanates out to a couple of inches, I guess, where your aura is,
Mm.
and for that to be the self occupation. So it's like, for me, that really resonated because rather than just putting, a gold light or a white light around me that was working as a barrier, I was actually filling myself with my own light and my own love and power so that there was no room left in me for anything to, to get in to penetrate the defenses.
I like that.
Yeah, I thought that was quite a
Self
nice way to look at it.
occupation. I'm going to
Yeah.
adopt that. Self occupation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
that sounds empowering.
if you fill your own body with light, there's no room for anything else to get in. Whereas I could imagine people feeling, oh well, what if my golden ring isn't strong enough? What if my light, what if somebody manages to break through it and then they can
Mm.
get to me? And that I've felt that before, years ago. I would like, oh, am I doing this properly? Am I doing it strongly enough?
Mm. Mm.
Whereas you fill your body with the light and there's no space for anybody else to occupy it. So I
I'm
quite
going to
liked that.
adopt that. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. I'm going to adopt
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's good.
Um, okay, so for the last few minutes, we kind of wanted to speak briefly because we've not done it so far, really, about different tools that people might use. And this fits into protection because I think this is one of the subjects that we're aligned with, that there's certain tools that we believe are more easily used by dense energies than others,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so when we say tools, we're talking about tarot card, pendulum, um, ribbons, flowers, tea leaves,
yeah. Crystal
anything
balls.
really, crystal balls,
Yeah.
so much can be used as a divination tool.
Yeah.
And they're all used in different ways. Again, we were talking about intention earlier, and I believe intention is a big part of using those tools and how they're used. But there are a couple of tools that we've always been a little bit shaky about, haven't we? And
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. For example, the Ouija board. A lot of people think, oh, that's dying out. That's something, they think about the Victorian times, the old Ouija board. But it's
Mhm.
amazing how many young people have and use a Ouija board.
Well, because like they sell it as a toy. They sell it as a board game in shops now. I've seen
Oh,
Ouija boards
really?
being sold like next to Scrabble, you
Oh,
know?
to me, that really upsets me to hear that because to me, it's like a tool of disrespect to the spirit world because the spirit world, they were people, they were
Mhm.
living beings, and to somehow bring communication with them to a board game just feels wrong. It
Yeah,
feels
and
wrong
and
to me.
you are gonna have to, really explain what you believe the issue is with these, because there are a lot of mediums nowadays that are using the Ouija board and are
Yeah,
using other tools that we have maybe shied away
yeah,
from in the past. So this is potentially controversial because there'll be a lot of people that say, well, what's the problem with it? As long,
yeah.
taking a leaf from my book, as long as your intention's good, dot, dot,
Yes,
dot.
yes.
But
You've
what,
hit the nail on the head.
yeah,
Intention.
yeah,
Because in the hands of a medium, um, or someone, you don't have to be a practicing medium. You just, need to have respect for the spirit world. Your intentions would be pure,
hmm
and you would be using it for the right reasons. But generally, what I'm told, and as recently as just a few days ago, that, oh, yeah, we go out on a Saturday night, come back, get the Ouija board out and have a laugh, you know. And, and sadly, a lot of it is young people who think this is a bit of fun. And in fact, I said to him, if you think it's a bit of fun, you're just playing around with your mates, who do you think you're going to get from the other side?
mm,
You've been out, you've been drinking, some of your friends are doing drugs, you want to have a laugh, you get the Ouija board out. Honestly, who are you going to attract from the other side?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. And, I won't say his name on the podcast because, but you know him, is
Yeah.
one of your nephews. And he said that after one incident a few weeks ago, his friend had a really bad experience.
Mm.
There were like things flying around and all sorts of scary stuff happening in his apartment.
Well, this
Yeah,
is the thing, right? And you say the Ouija board tends to be a young person thing, and it always was when I was a kid. I remember the only time I ever really heard about Ouija boards was either in a horror film
yeah,
or some kids at school had a sleepover and decided to do the Ouija board. But I remember a story of a girl at school, and a group of them had done the Ouija board. Something happened while they were playing, and one of the girls just froze, said that she could see somebody or something had happened, screamed, and like ran out of the school. And I don't,
yeah,
I don't think she was seen for a few days after that. So it's like it always has had that kind of fear element around it. But I guess for me, I've been surprised in recent years how many mediums are using it and kind of saying, "Oh yeah, it's fine." But I suppose, like you said, it is all about intention. If you're a strong enough medium to have the intention to use it with respect and use it in the right positive way, then perhaps like anything else, it's a good tool. But Yeah, I mean, nine
Yeah,
times out of ten, it's not going to be used in that way, right?
that's it. And that's why I think as well, um, I wouldn't promote it in any way. In fact, I
Mm.
told somebody on here last year who had a Ouija board in the house and they'd got young children. I said, personally, I would remove it from the home. And she said,
Yeah.
well, it's interesting you say that because I have had negative feelings about it even being in the house. I said, well,
Mm.
follow your hunch then and take it
Yeah.
out, you know. Now, the
I
other,
mean, sorry, go
no,
ahead.
no, 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 go on, you.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, I guess when you're looking at it in an intention point of view, we could say that any tool has the capacity to be used by denser energies.
Yes.
But is it just something specific about the Ouija board and some of the other tools that make it more attractive, or is it more so, do you think, because of the way that it's been used historically and because it's tended to be pulled out at the end of a drunken night for a bit of fun?
Yeah, I think it's the sheer availability of it now, and
Yeah.
and who is using it, and I know that a lot of young people are using them without the knowledge of what they could be attracting. So in the hands of a medium, then
Mm.
yes, it's another tool. Not a tool I would choose because I think, oh my God, I don't want to be chasing around letters or numbers on a board. I'd rather communicate with
Yeah.
spirit in a different way. But yeah, that and one other, the spirit box.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that because I was just about to say the spirit box, and not just a spirit box, also uh, her that shall not be named because I don't want to set everybody's devices off, but her name begins with an A, and ends in an A, and she lives in a lot of people's houses now. Yours went off just before we started recording, and you
Oh
had to
yes,
unplug her because she was
yes,
listening.
yeah.
But yeah, along with the spirit box, I've seen a lot of people using them now as well, to communicate. Um, and so it's very interesting. So you give us
Oh
your
my God, yeah.
your brief as to why you don't like them.
I I like them even less than the Ouija board. I
Mm,
honestly do. And you're right. I see more and more mediums with them, and I just think, what the heck,
mm,
because um, there's no scientific proof. I mean, there's no scientific proof of a lot of things that we're involved with, but the with the spirit box, it is known that they pick up signals, radio waves.
hmm.
It's known that they will capture tiny, fragments of conversation
Yeah,
from.
actually, so for those of you that don't know, a spirit box is it's a box that it kind of just scans through radio frequencies, and I guess the idea of it is, I'm not sure if it's supposed to that spirit are supposed to be able to come through and just say full sentences, or if it's supposed to be kind of a cut and paste of words from the frequencies that it's scanning that it then just highlights. So, for example, if you're scanning through channels, it might pick up um, the word I, another scan might pick up the word love, another scan might pick up the word you, and so you hear I love you, or whether the
Hmm.
idea is that spirit are just able to use it to kind of say full sentences, but
Yeah,
just an overview as to what a spirit box is for those of you that don't know.
yeah, yeah. Good point. Well, I've never heard any full sentence.
No.
And nobody who's used these spirit boxes have told me that they've heard a full sentence. They might have caught a word here, what they think is a name here and
Hmm.
there. And I think to me, they are dangerous because if people who are extremely vulnerable, somebody who's just lost somebody, and they're using these spirit boxes, then we know enough about the study of human beings to know that we as humans are we're programmed to hear familiar sounds,
Mm.
you know,
Hmm.
out of lots of different sounds. It's like a room full of people talking and someone says your name.
Yeah.
You hear it amongst
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
noise. Yeah?
Hmm.
So you're listening to one of these spirit boxes and you are listening for a name.
Yeah.
Chances are you will hear it. You want to hear it. And we're biologically tuned to pick up those familiar sounds. I
Hmm.
think there's a name for it. I think it's called pareidolia. And I think it's very linked to something called pareidolia. I think it's pareidolia. You know where you can look at, say, a marbled wall and you see faces in it, or a piece of
Yeah.
grained wood and you'll see a face in that wood if you look hard
Yeah.
enough. Well,
Yeah.
that's again, it's a biological programming that enables
Yeah.
us to look for a familiar face
Hmm.
amongst hundreds. And those spirit boxes, they they give people false hope.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective because I think I completely agree with what you're saying. For me, the issue with them is what could actually come through on them. And I know
Yes.
we had this discussion not so long ago where we were talking about, okay, why is it that this spirit box or whatever would potentially attract such dense energies? As we've said, everything has the potential to do that, but maybe some tools are just a little bit more susceptible to it. And in my mind, if you've ever heard a spirit box, they're so loud and they're so
Mm.
chaotic. As it's scanning through the channels, it's just noise and static and
Yes.
it just a constant um, kind of assault on the ears. And so to me, if you're using something that has that chaotic energy, it's going to attract energy of the same kind, which is chaotic energy.
I
You
absolutely
know?
agree. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Without a doubt. So, all round, that's my number one no
Yeah.
for tools. And like we've talked about before, you can use virtually anything really. Sand, crystals, salt. You
Yeah.
mentioned tea leaves. Anything as a tool. But, there's some that just because of who they attract
Yeah.
should be off the list.
I think as well, and I guess maybe we've just got a couple of minutes left, so just kind of wrap up with thoughts. But I guess this is the same with the Ouija board as well, where, in mediumship and spiritualism, you're so often taught to sit in the power, to quiet the mind, to center yourself, and to be one with yourself. And so for me, I think stuff like tarot, pendulum, crystals, crystal ball, oracle cards, you have the ability to sit in your own energy and with your positive intention and use those tools. I think when you start to look outside of that, you look at the Ouija board. The Ouija board is designed to maybe be used in a group setting or, a more social setting. Immediately you have less control over what energies are there. You
Good
have less
point.
control about what the feeling of the room is, what the energy is within the room. And then take that one step further to the spirit box where you literally have this physical, chaotic kind of energy floating about. I think that's one of the big differences for me. The Ouija
Yes.
board and the spirit box, it takes away the ability to sit down with your pure intention in the silence and communicate with the people that you actually want to
Yeah.
communicate with.
Yeah. 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 I couldn't agree more. That's absolutely spot on. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, the last thing, I don't know if we've got time to just say, the other pet hate of mine is going to haunted houses for entertainment purposes.
Oh,
I
Yeah,
absolutely
well,
hate
but
it.
a big part of that is just because you're a big scaredy cat. But
Oh my God,
we'll.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, if we went to a haunted house, I would be stood behind you for
Yeah,
sure. But
yeah,
I do not get going to a haunted house and you know expecting to meet with positive energies there. I just think I'm sure there's a haunted house. What have we talked about right at the beginning? People trapped between the two worlds.
yeah,
Why would you
yeah,
go there for entertainment? For goodness sake,
yeah,
if you're not going to go there to do good and to try and enable them to move into the light, you know,
yeah.
then
I mean,
don't go.
I personally don't have as much of an issue with that as you do. I know it's one of your big bugbears. What I
Yep.
would say about it is, yeah, absolutely. If you're walking into somewhere where you know is haunted or you know that there's a lot of dark energy, people like to go to
Mm,
sites, don't they, like famous sites around the world where catastrophes have happened and stuff because the
yeah.
energy is so, can be felt so much.
Mm.
For me, if you're going to walk into one of those areas, you kind of have to just accept what's going to happen. You better hope that you've got the best protection or self occupation routine that the world has to offer because you're going to need it. Um, because there's also the whole thing of bringing energies back with you from those places as well,
Yes.
which again we don't have time to get into now, but you've got the potential to bring those energies back with you. So I don't have an issue with it because I'm like, yeah, okay, live and let live. If that's what you want to do and you want to go walk around a graveyard at night, then protect yourself and expect anything and everything that comes at you, basically.
Yeah. Now, I, on the other hand, think you have no right being there if
Yeah,
if your intention is to go and hopefully, see a few scary ghosts, then
yeah.
people are going with the wrong intention.
Oh yeah, well, it's like jumping in the ocean into the middle of a load of sharks and expecting to be okay.
Yeah,
you completely just walking into a space that clearly belongs to somebody else, and that's gonna
exactly.
have it repercussions.
Yeah, respect the sharks.
Yeah,
That's their water. Don't go in. If you
yeah,
get eaten, you know,
yeah.
they're going to
No.
blame the poor sharks, which is wrong.
Well, you don't have to worry about that. You can leave the ghost hunting to somebody else because that's never going to be on your bucket list.
Not a chance. No, no.
Okay, well, I think we've discussed a lot again. The hour goes by way too quickly. I know that
Yeah,
there's a lot of other things that we could start to talk about because once you go down one pathway, it kind of opens up just this whole other area and topic of discussion. But
yeah, yeah.
we we have to try and contain ourselves a little there.
We do. But can I end on a question?
Yeah.
After everything we've talked about today and about, the possibility of questioning who are you communicating with,
Mm.
I would argue that one of your favoured tools, the tarot card, is probably one of the safest tools to use
Hmm.
if you are giving readings to other people or giving yourself a reading and your intention is to do a psychic reading where you're not communicating with anybody in the spirit world,
Hmm.
then
Okay.
that surely has to be one of the safest tools to use amongst all
Well,
the tools.
as you say, as a lover of tarot, I would agree. Um, Personally, I think it's a subject that's worthy of our time, and so I'm wondering maybe that's the direction that our next episode goes in,
Yeah,
and tarot and other tools.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think so
perfect.
because you know a lot about it and I know very little. But I'm beginning to have more respect for the thought that it is a very safe tool to use.
Yeah, and you use tools as well. You know, you've got your crystal
Yeah.
ball and you have things that you use, but maybe from a more what I would say mediumship perspective, as in actually communicating with
Mm.
spirit, whereas I use tools on a very psychic level, as we said in the previous episode. But
Yeah.
yeah, let's discuss that further next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for joining me, Mum, on this podcast. It's always a pleasure to
Always.
chew the fat, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and for our listeners out there, thank you always for joining us and for listening. We know that not everything we say is gonna resonate with you, but hopefully there's a lot in there for you to sit and think about and carry into your discussions in your life over the next few days. We hope that you managed to get something from this that resonated with you. So we will say goodbye and we will leave you with our love and we will see you next time.
Yeah. Goodbye.